All right, thanks for joining us with Cooking with Caldwell. Today we're going to make a ultimate steak sandwich using a New York strip. I'm going to show you how to pickle some shallots and make an herbed aioli sauce. So let's go ahead and get started on the pickled shallot. In a previous demo, I showed you how to use a siphon to actually make a butter sponge cake in the microwave. I'm going to show you another technique to use this, and we're actually going to pickle shallots in 5 minutes. So let's get started on the knife cuts. We're going to use a julienne knife cut for these shallots. So I'm cut it in half. I'm going to cut the root end off first, which is the bottom. Peel these off. Make sure you use a nice sharp knife. That's the trick to not cutting yourself. Make sure you got a sharp knife. If you have a dull knife, you have to apply more pressure to that knife cut, which gives you more of a chance to slip and cut yourself. So what we're going to do, onions have a natural curvature all the way around, so we're going to follow that curvature all the way. Okay? Get a nice julienne. Once I get to the top, I don't want to carry my knife this way, so I'm just going to flip it over and finish that knife cut out. Just like that. So now we have a nice julienne. Shallots love to grow this way, so we might have to come back and finish it out. All right. Let's go to this one. I used a 3-finger rule, right? 1 in front, 2 in the back. Good way to not cut yourself. My knife's never going to go higher than my knuckle, so I know I'm not coming down on it. So I can use that knuckle as a guide, right? So 1 in the front, 2 in the back. All right, so now we have a nice, beautiful julienne. Let's move over here to our pickling. So this is my pickling liquid. I use white balsamic vinegar, water, and sugar. Let's add our shallots right here to our Ziploc bag. It's very neat. I love pickling using this siphon because it keeps the integrity of the vegetables as well, right? So you still keep that texture. A lot of times when you pickle over a 2 to 3 day basis, it'll break those vegetables down. It'll pull a lot of the moisture out of them. So this is a neat way of doing it with keeping the integrity of those vegetables. Okay, so put our shallots in our Ziploc, take our pickling liquid, fill it enough just to cover, because we still have to fit it inside here, so you don't want to fill the bag up too much. Put a touch more. Just like that, perfect. So we're going to close it all the way, and then we're going to leave just a little bit open. What we're going to do is take our bucket of water, and the pressure of the water is going to push all the remaining air out. So it's like a pressurized vacuum. All the way until we get to the top. Once we get to the top, we're going to close it off. Now that's perfectly sealed. And it's got all the excess air out of there. So we're going to roll it up. We're going to put it in our siphon container. Just like that, right? And your siphon's going to have a max fill line right here. And that's where we want to fill it with water, okay? So we're going to fill that to our max fill line. More. Check our line, we're right where we need to be, which is great. Okay. Now we're going to charge it. You can do pickles this way. You can pickle anything this way, right? Your time will depict the knife cut. So if your knife cuts were a little larger, a little thicker, it might take a little longer, but since we did a nice julienne, a nice thin julienne, it should take about 5 minutes, right? So I'm using nitrous. You can use CO2, but I'm using nitrous because it's a stronger pressure, right? So make sure it's good and tight. Make sure you don't hit the nozzle because that's going to release all the liquid, all the water inside. We're just going to give it a few shakes. Let that pressure build up. What this is doing is the pressure of the water is pushing against those vegetables, so that pickling liquid is actually permeating the cell walls of the vegetable itself without taking the integrity of the vegetable, the texture, taking all that away, and pulling a lot of that moisture out, because the longer you let something pickle or cure, the more moisture it's going to pull out of it, okay? All right, so this is going to take about 5 to 6 minutes, and we'll move on to the steak, okay? So for the steak that I've used for this dish is a New York strip steak, because this is going to be an ultimate steak sandwich, right? So we're going to use a New York strip, okay? And we're going to season it a lot, right? Be generous, okay? Make a nice crust. So I love using kosher salt, okay? Fresh cracked pepper. You can notice how much I'm putting on there. Generous. We're going to be generous, okay? More salt. Be generous. A lot of good flavor. It's going to build a lot of good crust. All right, we're going to let this sit for a few minutes, let that salt start to pull some of that moisture out, and season the beef real nice, okay? Go ahead and get our pan hot. My rule is always heat your pan first, and then we add our oil, okay? Let that start getting hot. So I'm going to cut some of this fat off. A little too much fat for a sandwich, so we're going to clean it up. Just take a little bit of it off there. You can let that fat render down, but we're going to cook this to a nice medium rare. So we're going to go ahead and take it out. Pan's getting nice and hot. I'm using a nice extra virgin olive oil and canola blend, which is 75% canola oil, 25% extra virgin olive. So I get the smoke point of the canola oil and I get the flavor of that extra virgin, okay? Once you notice your oil starting to move around in the pan real quick, you know it's starting to get real good and hot. Moving around real good. Roll all that black pepper and that salt in that steak there. Start to see real nice sear there. Pan good and hot. So to get a nice good mid-rare, we're going to go 2 to 3 minutes per side. Making sure we don't move the steak. Okay, we let it cook. We let those sugars caramelize because that's where the flavor is, right? We're trying to caramelize those sugars. I know you've probably heard the term, a nice sear locks in all the juices. Well, I actually believe it really elevates the flavor more than locks the juices in, right? We're going to let that steak rest, and that's what's going to keep all of our juices in and lock those juices in, okay? So we're just moving that oil around, controlling our heat. See, we're getting to our smoke point. Right. We got a nice crust on that side. We're gonna flip. Caramelize those sugars. Cut the heat down just a little bit. We're starting to hit our smoke point. I'm going to scoot that pan up to the top, or the steak up to the top of the pan. I'll show you how we're going to finish this steak off to give it a lot of good flavor here. Nice garlic clove. We're just going to smash it. Okay? Easy way to get that peel off, just smash it. All right. So we're going to add a whole sprig of thyme and a whole garlic clove into the pan. Now, I'm going to add some butter. The garlic and the thyme is going to make the butter real aromatic. And we're just going to start braising with it now. That's going to finish that steak off for us. Put that heat down. Be very careful. It's called butter basting. I love doing my fish this way. You will never have a piece of white fish any other way after you butter baste it. It's great for steaks. Oh, if you could smell this right now. All right. We're going to turn our steak off. It's done. Show you a nice trick to check your temperature. This is a mid-rare. It's a medium, medium well, and a well. So we go by filling the steak. I'm at a good medium rare, going to a medium. So we're going to let that steak rest. Go ahead and take it out of the pan. Look at that. See that beautiful crust? See that beautiful crust, all the caramelization, the salt, the pepper, made a nice crust for us on that steak. Now we're going to move to the herbed aioli that we're going to use for the sandwich. So we're going to move this out of the way. Before we get to that, let's add one more charge to our pickled shallots, okay? Be very careful when you do this. Make sure you don't flip it over, but we're going to release the pressure and hold it straight up so that water don't shoot out. Don't do it too quick either. Just like you're opening a bottle of soda, right? You don't want to do it too fast or it'll just shoot out. All right. Add one more. Real nice and tight. You'll hear the gas. Shake it a couple times. We're going to let that keep charging, okay? Now let's get started on our aioli. Aioli is essentially just a garlic mayonnaise, right? So let's take 1 clove of garlic. Slide the steak over, let it rest. Notice I'm using this cutting board because this was my raw cutting board, right? Use a sanitized towel to wipe your knife. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a garlic paste. Show you a nice way to make a garlic paste. I like using garlic paste when I'm including it in a sauce or a spread and I'm not cooking it. So when I'm doing a raw form of garlic, I like using a paste. Now essentially what we do is we mince it up first. All right. Take our knife, we're going to smash it, okay? Keep smashing. Scoop it up. Go back through. But eventually, it'll turn transparent. Smash it some more. See how it's turning transparent on the board? Scoop it up. We'll do it one more time and we should be good. Alright. See how it's turning transparent on the board? Scoop it up. Go right in our bowl. Okay. Lay it down. 2 egg yolks. Make sure they don't bust. A lot of times I can. I like just using my fingers. There you go. 1 yolk. All right. Get your egg yolks. Move it back and forth. They can be stubborn. All right. Into the bowl. Sanitized rag. Clean your hands. So we're making a mayonnaise by hand. You can use a food processor to do this as well. Add all your ingredients to the food processor except for the oil, and then drizzle your oil in after when the machine's running. You can do that as well. But I'll go ahead and show you the hard way. Get our eggs whipped. We're going to whip them until they're pale yellow. Starting to get pale yellow. I'm going to put a little bit of cracked pepper. I'm not going to add my salt yet because salt will start to pull the moisture out of the egg. So we're going to wait till the end to add our salt. And that goes for cooking any egg. So if you're doing scrambled eggs, don't salt your eggs while they're in the bowl. Wait till they're in the pan before you salt your eggs so they don't pull all the moisture out and make your eggs watery. Okay. So at this stage, I'm going to start drizzling my oil in. Again, I'm using an oil blend. Okay. So while whipping, I like using a squeeze bottle because I can control my stream, right? If I was using a cup or a measuring cup, it's going to drizzle down the side. You can't control how much you're putting in there at one time. So I like using a squeeze bottle. See how it's starting to thicken up like a mayonnaise? Back off. I'm going to scrape my sides down. If you notice it's starting to get too thick, you can add just a touch of water to thin it up. I'm also going to add some red wine vinegar. You need some kind of acidity, whether it's vinegar, lemon juice, to balance out all the fat from the oil and the egg, right? A lot of fat going on, so you need to balance that out with some acidity. Now it's starting to come together. So we're going to go back to the oil. So if you're right-handed, I feel it's easier to whip clockwise instead of counterclockwise. A lot of people whip like that, but you'll lose your forearm. So once you learn this, it'll really save you some time, and it'll save your arm too. So now we're going to go ahead and add our herbs, a little bit of fresh parsley. I have some chopped scallion and chopped thyme. Go ahead and incorporate that. Nice mayonnaise consistency. All right. And this is when I'm going to season with salt, right? A little bit of salt. We call this an emulsification, right? Emulsification or an emulsion is two substances that wouldn't normally mix, which would be fat and liquid. So we have our fat and our liquid in there. And our emulsifiers are the egg, the herbs, and that's what's holding everything together. Give it a quick taste. See where we're at. Oh yeah, that's good. A little more vinegar. The garlic's going to give you a nice little bit of heat. Believe it or not, garlic can be really hot, especially using fresh. But making that paste, you're not going to bite into a big chunk of garlic, right? It's in a paste. It's going to distribute evenly in the sauce. One more taste. A pinch more salt too. Oh yeah, that's good. So now we have our aioli, our steak's resting. All right. So let's take a look at our steak here. Get this out of the way. So what we're going to do is make a bias cut. I'm going to cut this fat off the end right here. We're going to make a bias cut. And a bias cut is at an angle. It makes it easier to spread and to lay out. Look at that. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Notice my juices are not running out, right? It wasn't because of the syrup. It's because we let that protein rest. Okay? So cut through that crust. Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful mid-rare. It doesn't matter what protein you're cooking, always let it rest, right? Your proteins are still coagulating. It's actually still cooking. So we call that carryover cooking. So it's still going to be cooking during that process. So you need to let it rest, let the proteins calm down. And then all those juices are going to stay in the steak instead of going all over your cutting board or all over your plate, okay? Let's get our plate. Toasted French bread. Herb aioli. This part becomes objective, right? You put as much as you want on there if you're a condiment person. But it is going to have a lot of flavor. Okay, let's go ahead and pull our shallots out and see how they look. Remember, be careful, hold it straight up so it don't shoot the water out. And let the pressure out. I can feel it bubbling inside. A lot of pressure going on. That bag should have a lot of bubbles in it. It'll be easy when you take the lid off. Go ahead and pour the water out. Pull the bag out. Nice. So you can see all those bubbles in the bag. That's how much pressure was built up. All right. So now we have some beautiful pickled shallot. All right. I got some nice spring mix here. You can use arugula, watercress, spring mix, spinach, anything you would like. I'm a big arugula fan. Arugula would be real nice. But we're using spring mix today. Let's put that on the bottom so our steak don't make our bread real soggy. All right. Just like that. Some beautiful pickled shallot on top. Again, it's subjective. You can put as much as you'd like. A few pieces of greenery on top. Just like that. You can serve it like that. You can go ahead and put it on, make a nice knife cut all the way across. Depends on who you're serving. And that right there is the ultimate steak sandwich. New York strip steak, pickled shallot, herbed aioli, and some nice greens on top. Thanks for joining us with Cooking with Caldwell, and hope to see you again. Thanks.